Yeah, yeah. Okay, cool, great. So I think, yeah, so like, do you have any questions? Like, did you, something that you may want me to ask, or some point that you may want me to bring up, something like that?
Not really. No.
Okay, then I'll basically just do it across the presentation. So a few like I already gave you like the pointers, right? So the main thing is that because I think yesterday you said something along the lines of that you're not currently aware of what the design solution is because you're not associated with the project anymore.
Right.
But preferably try avoid saying that. Instead, you can just say something along the lines of that it's still in the research phase or the design proposal is being
Okay.
prepared and
Got
you're
it.
not
Yeah.
allowed to share about it because it basically sounds as if it's not your responsibility anymore, which
Right.
shouldn't be the case, right?
No, no,
So
absolutely.
it's just
Absolutely.
yeah, just that
So,
small point.
since I'll be sorry, I'm trying to stop it. I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
I'll
go
be
ahead.
presenting on the screen. I can read side by side. No, in case I miss a pointer, I'm just keeping my
Yeah, you can read. It's just
notes on
that
the
it
side.
shouldn't be like a script, right? Like
No, no,
it shouldn't
absolutely,
be that you're not
absolutely.
looking
Yeah,
in
yeah,
the
of course,
camera at all. So
of
that's
course,
fine.
of
Like
course.
reading and all
Yeah.
is like if it's pointers and all, that's fine. I think you can share your screen and keep the first slide on, and then I'll probably just start inviting in people. Um, yeah. I think I'll also disable the waiting lobby now. So yeah, so it should be saving, I think, somewhere on your PC itself.
Okay.
I think so.
The
Can you just
recording,
check that? Yeah, yeah.
I
It should
think it
be
comes
in
into
this.
your email, right? No?
I'm not sure if it's a cloud recording or not. If it's a cloud recording, it should come into the email. But if it's like a local recording, then I'm not sure.
I'll have to check on my PC. Once again.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think in the Zoom settings itself, you may be able to check.
Oh, okay.
I think in the settings, there might be an option of like a location where to save or something along those lines.
I am not sure. Pause recording reactions.
Now, is there in the meeting settings? There's nothing about record like where the recording is being saved or something
I'm
along
just
those lines.
gonna share my.
Yeah.
Give me some nice choice.
Okay. So I see your desktop right now.
Yeah, I'm just trying to find where I can check. It's not on
No, I
the.
think if you open the Zoom menu, like if you just open Zoom itself, not this, the meeting that you're
Yeah,
currently on.
it's right on the screen. I'll just expand it.
Uh, I think it's because I still see your desktop. I think that might be the issue because I don't see the Zoom window. That's what I'm saying. There should be an option to share screen, like not a window, but just to
Yeah,
share the
yeah.
screen. So
I am doing share screen, but it goes on my desktop. You can see my desktop again, right?
yes, yes. Okay, okay. I think it's fine, I guess, because we can figure that out once the webinar is over.
Yes.
We can figure it out if it's saved
But
locally or yeah.
okay.
Yeah, even if it's on the cloud, then it's well and good. If it's not on the cloud, if it's saved locally, then we'll be able to figure out where it is. It should ideally be there. It probably says somewhere in your my documents or my videos sort of a folder. Should be, but yeah, we'll see that later. So now, yeah, you can share the screen and I'll just. Okay, so Rohan is here.
Just yeah. You can see my screen, right?
Yes, but can you put it on full screen or something?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay, so Rohan is here.
Everyone.
I think he's still connecting his audio. Okay.
I am just going to be back in a second. 1 second.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone.
I think his audio is probably not. Yeah, his audio is not connected. Rohan? Hello.
हेलो हेलो हेलो
Good morning, bro.
सॉरी मैं बाहर हूँ
हाँ, कोई बात नहीं, कोई बात नहीं.
इस लड़की ने ढंग की प्रेजेंटेशन बनाई है
प्रेजेंटेशन सही है यार इसकी. कंटेंट काफी सही, काफी बढ़िया है.
Presentation okay है, पर presentation skills okay नहीं है. That I need to improve on. Rohan, please, two weird questions
हो
मत पूछो
जाए
यार.
हो जाएगा भाई तुषार को पता है मुझसे गंदी प्रेजेंटेशन देता नहीं होगा कोई
ऐसा कुछ नहीं.
बस
सब
मुझसे
सही कर लेते
weird
हैं.
questions मत पूछना जिसका तुम्हें लगता हो कि प्रतिभा को पता ही नहीं होगा.
चलो तुम करो अभी है ना 5-10 मिनट में स्टार्ट है ना
5 मिनट है. हाँ, 5 मिनट तो है.
चलो नाइस
Okay.
मैंने इसलिए अभी वेटिंग रूम हटाया नहीं है ना. इनकेस अगर कुछ पहले डिस्कस करना तो हम लोग कर ले, फिर मैं बाकी लोगों को वो करूंगा. फिर 10 बजे मैं वेटिंग रूम हटा दूंगा ताकि लोग ऐसे ही डायरेक्टली ज्वाइन करें.
अगर मैं बीच में
हाँ
थोड़ा
सही है
ज्यादा फास्ट बोल रही हूँ then I'll keep reminding myself और मुझे बता देना that I'll talk slow then.
हाँ, तो आई मीन कीप द फोन बिसाइड यू ताकि कुछ हो तो मैं मैसेज कर दूं एकदम
Yeah,
से.
yeah, it's right.
ताकि हाँ.
ठीक है प्रतिभा वो सागर को बोल दियो ज्वाइन कर ले और मैं
ठीक है.
हाँ यार, मतलब जो लोग हैं जो भी कर सकते हैं उनको बोल दो ज्वाइन करें.
मैं बोल देती हूँ अभी.
तो ऑडियंस ऐसी बढ़ेगी.
ठीक है
अच्छा, तो ठीक है. आई थिंक माय सुपरवाइजर इज आल्सो जॉइनिंग, सो आई जस्ट ऐड हिम इन.
चलो चलो मैं म्यूट कर रहा हूँ
ओके. सर गुड मॉर्निंग.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah, good morning.
So, Pratibha, this is architect Premendra Raj Mehta.
Hi,
He is
good
our
morning, sir.
supervisor, and sir, this is architect Pratibha. She will be the speaker
Yes.
for today.
Uh-huh. Good. Very good. Welcome, Pratibha.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
So where are you now?
Sir, I'm based out of Gurgaon, sir.
Okay, based out of Gurgaon. And what do you
Yes.
do?
I have just started freelancing and doing my own projects, sir.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. Looking forward to some very interesting presentation from you.
Thank you so much, sir. Thanks a lot.
Yes, so let's just wait for like 5 6 more minutes and then we can probably begin.
Sure.
Okay, so I think it's 10:05 and I think we can begin with the webinar now. I know for like a few people are having a bit of trouble joining in, but hopefully that will get resolved soon. Okay, so very good morning to all. My name is Architect Tushar Mandal and I welcome you all to the 25th webinar in the Every Friday webinar series, a platform for young minds to express their ideas. Today's webinar will be assessing the feasibility of school consolidation models presented by architect Pratibha Malik. So before introducing the speaker for today, I would like to honor architect Premendra Raj Mehta, who is the mentor of our school. He was also the former president of the Council of Architecture. Sir, if you could just say a few words to motivate us.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. Welcome, Pratibha, to this Friday discussion. I'm very, very happy to welcome you all. This is a very interesting seminar now. Almost it's been 6 months. We are into it. And we let and invite young minds to share some of their ideas which can improve human habitat today, or they could be something which we need to implement to secure our future in the years to come. There has been very interesting response, and we have been sharing this seminar and the issues which crop up with the concerned bodies, and we attempt to mitigate some of our difficulties in human habitat. Some participants and speakers have touched upon the issues of day-to-day life, and some have been talking about how our future would shape in terms of profession and in terms of habitat. So very interesting, and we are very, very happy to have young minds coming in week after week. Very encouraging response. And I welcome you, Pratibha, to share your ideas. And at Periyar, our promise is to take it forward in whatever best possible manner. So please go ahead, welcome, and wish all of you a very enjoyable discussion today.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you so much, sir. So now I will introduce our speaker for today's webinar, architect Pratibha Malik. So Pratibha is an architect and urban fellow looking to orient her journey towards engaging with urban infrastructure through research tools and efficient design practices. Having worked as a project consultant at EY, Pratibha is now practicing as an independent architect. She has done an urban fellowship from the Indian Institute of Human Settlement, post her BArch from Sushant School of Architecture in 2017. I would request Pratibha to now begin her presentation, and it's a request to all the participants to keep themselves muted for the duration of the presentation. Once the presentation is over, we will have an active discussion and question answer round. Thank you. Pratibha, you can now begin with your presentation.
Thank you so much, Tushar, for the lovely introduction. Hi, everyone. Hope you're all doing well. So, since Tushar has already introduced me, I would just begin with saying that during my fellowship, I had developed a keen interest in research and methodologies to study various issues that were regarding the urban settings today. And I will be talking about a project today, which is very close to me. And I did this project, I researched on this project during my fellowship in 2020. And it's the topic of this presentation is school complex and consolidation models. So the government of India, as we all know, has established schools within 1 kilometer each of each habitation in the country and up till class 8th, with the aim to fulfill the right of compulsory and free education in India for all the children with the age of 6 to 14 years under the RTE. So RTE prescribed minimum norms for elementary schools, and it also prohibited unrecognized schools from practice. Post the RTE, the strategy of the school expansion, no doubt it has delivered access to a lot of students in the country. However, it resulted in the development of very small schools, and most of them lacking infrastructure in certain areas. These schools were developed just to fulfill a criteria of having a school, within 1 kilometer each of every habitation. So these schools then further tend to become inefficient because of unavailability of teachers, a lot of infrastructure resources, and a lot of students not even joining these schools as their parents don't want them to go to these schools. Then in 2019, there was a draft national education policy, which had recommended reforms in education at all levels, from schools to higher education. And their main focus was to focus on early childhood care. So early childhood care, be it reforms in the exam system, strengthening teacher training programs, increasing the classroom student ratio, etc. One of the major recommendation that NEP had proposed was also to group multiple schools into a consolidated school complex and integrate the education at all levels, and which would also result in facilitating a sharing of resources, be it community building or making school governance more local, more effective and efficient. So this was basically the objective of why we started this project, in terms of actually trying to go on the field and trying to research if this recommendation, if this reform is possible in an urban setting. So the objective that we started doing this research on was based on two levels. The first level that we chose was to be on a group of schools. We were not looking at individual schools in our during our first months of research. We picked up certain schools, we picked up a lot of areas, and we tried to see how these group of schools would function with each other if they had to. And the key idea, again, as I said, was to involve these smaller and feasible schools that had deficiency in educational requirements, like multi-grading, access to a mix of teachers, to possibly be clubbed with other schools that have underutilized resources. The second level that we looked at was involving every school at a very individual level. We went to each school, we studied the details of the school in a very depth, and we analyzed the inadequacies that were there in each school, whether they needed more physical infrastructure, whether they needed more facilities, more teachers, are there proper classrooms, are there proper water facilities, etc. So this is how we started our research. So basically, the efficiency of schools was our idea to increase efficiency of schools was based on a qualitative analysis that we did to the resources that were already present in these individual schools. I would just take a minute to explain the important steps that we did through our entire research. I identified infrastructure-based intervention models, which means that I picked up a site in which I actually see that a lot of intervention could be possible, because it was on a very peripheral area in Bangalore. So selected two sites, Devnahalli and Vidadi, and one of the key ideas that I chose was to select these on the basis of CSR funding. Since a lot of companies through CSR try and make a lot of changes in these schools, so I wanted to go and check whether these changes are really being implemented. Are these schools actually flourishing of of the changes brought by CSR funding or not, and what are the incapabilities that these schools are facing? The third step that I did was collecting quantitative data. So before going on the site, I used two portals. One of them is School Geo Portal, as we all would know, and the other was a school report card, which gives you details of each one of these schools. Post that, to do my qualitative research, I had to take permission to go to these schools and do a comparative study, to come back and recheck the pointers that are if to do a comparative analysis, if it's actually the situations at the schools. Then I studied and mapped these schools one by one in a lot of details, and used all the key performance indicators that I could to get proper efficiency-based models. And the last step would be to develop simulation models out of the research that I'd done, to understand the functioning, if school complex is actually feasible or not. So this is the School Geo portal, and as you all know, it's MHRD, and I'm sure most of you must have seen this. So it was very easy to actually locate the schools and locate the areas that I would like to pick up. So you can see we picked up the schools that are marked in red, which come under the Department of Education. So this portal actually gives you a detail of proper school management, school categories, and all the school facilities that are there. If you go on the portal, you could see that you type in a school and you give its block, you give its district, and if you have the name, you give the name, and then the portal lists out the entire infrastructural related, even the report card related information on this portal. So these are the schools, these are the circumference of the schools that we selected. this is a school report card. So we knew the schools that we were selecting, we picked them up, we took out the information that we could from the portal. And as you can see in this report card, it was very easy for us to understand, how many students are there, be it girls or boys, how many washroom facilities are there individually for girls and boys, since RTE lists down a number of factors on which these infrastructure qualities need to be fulfilled. You can see in this particular chart that it gives you the list of whether there's a children with special needs washroom, whether there is a ramp for them, whether there is a playground, whether there is a science lab or a library. So my next step was to take out data from the portal for all of the schools that I had selected and make a list of these KPIs, the important KPIs that would actually help me in my research. These are the 12 schools that I've marked, which we selected. After looking at the portal and trying to call these schools and understand what all is there, I got to know that the school that is marked in yellow is actually not even located at the site, but it's marked on the portal, and it has given information on the portal. The school marked as 2 was actually completely demolished, and a new complete school had been constructed, which was under CSR. And the blue ones are, they're mentioned as the primary schools on the portal, but they were actually Anganwadis and not schools. The idea to select these 12 schools was that they were in a lot of proximity to each other. So even if we think about doing a school complex model, we would we need to understand that the kids, in case they do not have a science lab and they want to go to a science lab that's in school 9, it should be easier for them to do the travel. It should be safer for them to do the travel, so it should not be from a faraway distance. So we chose this cluster because it was close to check the feasibility of my model. So this was the quantitative data that I had collected from the school report card. I've mentioned all the 12 schools, and I've mentioned the major KPIs that RTE works on, be it the number of classrooms, be it there's 1 teacher per grade or not, be it the pupil-teacher ratio, whether it's fulfilled or not for these schools, the number of girls, the number of boys, the number of urinals for boys as per the ratio of the students in the school, whether there is a library, whether there is a proper water facility, number of computer labs, science labs, playground, etc. So this is the data that I collected from the report card. The areas that you would see blank are actually the criteria that were not fulfilled as mentioned in the report card. These are all the 12 schools. And you could actually see that there are very few schools out of these 12 which have students more than 50. And the others are literally less than 40, would be 15, would be 30. This I got from the report card data. My next step was to go on the site and research actually at an individual level, as I've mentioned before, and see if the key performance indicators that we picked up from the school report card are actually the ones that were happening on the site. So we found out 2 to 3 major understandings. First was that I could not actually locate 2 of the schools. As I mentioned one before, there was another one which was not there. One of the schools, it says it's a school at the report card level, but actually when I visited the site, it was a unrecognized madrasa and it was shut. Most of the data mentioned on the report card said that they had a computer lab, they had a library, but on the site, nothing was available. They were not even, if the report card data says that there are 3 classrooms with 25 students per class, there was only 1 classroom, 1 big classroom clubbed with a lot of facilities inside it. The red dots that you would see are actually the main KPIs which are missing from these schools, which the RTE suggests. So there were the pupil-teacher ratio, that is 1:30, was not available in any of the schools. There was the playground was there only in 1 school. The computer lab was missing from most except 1, and the water facility was extremely bad. Like except 2 to 3 schools, there was no proper drinking water for these kids. So this was my qualitative research that I had done. It took me almost 2 months to do this, visiting each school, studying each and every area in detail. Then I tried to prepare. I started with preparing my efficiency charts that I could, and I I understood that, the 4 more major schools in this area are the ones that have higher number of students and higher capacity to integrate more students from the other schools. The schools that you see in gray are the ones that have less than 50 students. So it gives us a basic idea that, if we try and form a model, it will make us easier for these kids to, pick up a proximity school and send them there to, avail the facilities that are available in the bigger schools. Then I try to prepare another chart in which I can understand that, as I had done my qualitative research, I try to put it in these charts to understand which of the schools are missing the major functions. Like none of these schools had 1 class per grade. Even if the bigger, better schools, they also had multiple classes happening in 1 classroom, multiple grades happening in 1 classroom. And the 1 teacher per grade was missing in maximum number of schools. That's the yellow color that you can see. And the pupil teacher ratio 1:30 is fulfilled by all of these schools, but that's one of the reasons, because the data mentions that there are 30 kids, there are 40 kids in the school, but the kids actually going to these schools are less than 15, they're less than 20. So they would just have 1 teacher teaching this entire school, be it all the subjects, be it whatever grades that they're in. This is another chart that I've done, and it shows us the kind of infrastructure that's missing from each of these schools. The computer lab is only there in 2 of the schools. Science lab is, I think, probably in just 1 school. The report card data mentions that there is a toilet for children with special needs in almost all the schools. But when I actually went into the site, I could only see it in 2 schools, which were actually locked because there were no kids, as otherwise mentioned in the data, and they used to keep it locked, and they only open it when some authority comes and visits them. Lastly, I did these efficiency charts by looking at all the factors that I've just talked about. And I got to know that there are only 4 schools in this entire area that actually fulfill the efficiency criteria up to 70% maximum. And we understood that the schools that are less efficient, the areas and what are the issues with them, what are the infrastructural requirements that they need. We listed all of those down. So I would like to share this picture because I actually sat in this classroom for 45 to 50 minutes, and later I understood that since there was just 1 teacher for this grade, I thought that this is just class 8th happening here. But the students sitting on the left side are the ones who are in 8th grade, and the ones sitting on the right side are actually 5th class students who have no idea what the teacher is teaching. They have a different set of books with them. They're just sitting there because they have nowhere else to sit in, and they have no other teacher to teach them. And there were kids sitting right next to me who were like probably in 2nd or 3rd grade, and they were just sitting there to be mentored, to be looked after because their parents have sent them, and they had no clue of the syllabus, no clue of the curriculum, no idea of what the teacher is trying to teach them. The tables that you see on the left, which have shelves in which there are books, are actually the so-called library of the school. This is where they sit, this is what they study, and these are the only limited books that they have to refer to. This is another school that I had visited, and it was a school that had around 40 students, 35 to 40 students. And this is the only classroom that they have, and only 4 benches for them to sit on, which they actually didn't because since, not to create an issue, they all sat on the floor, and the teacher would teach multiple grades at one go. The blue pots that you see behind are actually the drinking water that they use since they had no proper drinking water facility. The storage containers are actually for the Anganwadi room, which is right next to this classroom, and they store their food there because of the lack of space in that other room. So now on the left, you can see a school that has been done through CSR funding, and it has been developed pretty well. There is space for the teachers to sit in, and they have proper booths, they have proper storage facilities. However, on the right, you can see that is 1 classroom, and the cupboards that you can see behind, the steel cupboards, they actually create a separation between the classroom and the teacher staff room. So that is 1 room, and 4 teachers sit on 1 table to go. And these kids that you can see, most of them do not have uniform because they were not provided with the uniform. And this school, as mentioned in the report card data, mentioned that there are 60 students with 6 teachers for different subjects, but there were only 4 teachers and only 2 would come daily, since there's lack of space for them to sit, lack of space for them to, put their things or kids to teach. So that became a lot of issue. Now on the left, you can see the washrooms that were upgraded through CSR in the new schools. On the right are actually the rest of the 8 schools which did not have proper washroom facilities. Boys would go out in the open. There was a lack of tap water for them to use. There were trenches and there were open drains even in washroom for girls. So you can see a huge disparity between these. This is the data that I took permission to take pictures of from the schools. The grade register that you can see actually says absent, and these are the students that are enrolled in the school. They're mentioned on the report card data, but when we actually checked in from the register, none of them had attended school for probably 3 to 4 months because the parents had shifted and these kids do not have anywhere else to go, but the data on the website was not updated. So the school, one of the schools that had library, which you can see on the top left, there's just one school with proper library. It was shut because it was used for parking the bikes for the kids. Hardly anyone knew about these books. There was no one to tell them that what all subjects we have, what all books you can refer to, and they keep this room shut and use it for other probably other things. On the right, you can see a computer lab, which was there, and it remained locked. But I tried and asked teachers to open it, and they told me that we got these computers in 2019, 2018, 2019. Since then, they haven't been opened up. The books that we got haven't been opened up for the computers because there is no one to tell us how to actually put softwares in these, and we as teachers don't know how to tell the kids how to use them. So we generally don't have computer classes, so we just keep this room locked and we open them when some authority comes to visit these and make a checklist or whether this particular infrastructure is available at the school or not. These are the various upgradations that are done by CSR activities, and a good thing that I found out was 2 of the schools had screens for them to attend lectures on. In case a teacher is not available, they had tie-ups with other schools in the main city who are giving lectures, and they would actually listen to attend these classrooms. In some of the schools, proper urinary facility was made, proper washrooms were made, but due to lack of water, they were hardly being used since there was no tap water there. This is the condition of an Anganwadi. Anganwadi schools function separately from primary schools, but they used to be in the same block. The kitchens are also supposed to function separately with proper ventilation. However, most of these schools had one room where they would keep their food storage and everything in the same room where these kids are, they're sleeping, they're studying. There's one teacher to take care of them. That teacher is also the one who makes the midday meals. As you can see in the second picture, that's the lady making the food. It's a very small, crammed up area with no proper ventilation. These children did not have a separate washroom to go to, so they used the washroom that the primary school right next to them had, or they would go back to their homes to use this facility. After post my both qualitative and quantitative research, I tried to check that which school requires how much of additional infrastructure, be it classrooms, be it how many teachers are required in each of these schools, or additional physical infrastructure which is required. And then we developed that which of these schools can actually do a sharing of physical infrastructure, and how many schools are capable of doing a school consolidation for their improvement. One of the things that I understood was to come up with the school consolidation models, I have to keep in mind 2 major factors. That is mobility for these kids and the time that it takes for them to reach from one school to the other. That is also during different times of the week. So in each school and around that school, I went around and asked the parents that I could find of these students, will they be okay to send their, kids to a school that is around a kilometer away or 500 meters away during one time of the day for them to avail the certain facilities. Most of them were okay with that fact. Some of them were not very comfortable regarding safety issues and the trust issue that one needs to develop with the government. Most of them did not have that, but they were all extremely eager for us to bring a change in the education system for their children. When I went to one of the offices, BU office, the block education office, and tried to propose this idea of why we are doing this research, and I tried to mark in the Devnahali map that the schools that you mentioned here are actually upgraded; these have demolished, and they listened to me for a fact that they wanted an upgraded list of what all we can do. They did not have a lot of idea about the school geo portal. So for us and me and my team, it became a very training activity as well to go to these officers and actually tell them that these are the changes that can be brought in if just this much effort is done, and with this research we can actually prove what all benefits that these schools can get. So based on the study of these clusters of schools, the idea was to develop a decision support system, which is still being worked upon. And this system, based on the research that I've done, based on the efficiency models that I've created, we would want the authorities at the state and district level to actually take up these and analyze and visualize the efficiencies that can be generated for each schools as per the norms that are given by RDE. And is consolidation or an individual school development possible for these schools to make the education better? And this entire system of efficiency models will actually help and enable the officers to test the plans on this cluster and then actually come on the ground to implement them. The system that the idea was to develop that system in which we can actually update the sharing and existing resources of each school, so that when we're trying to get our models out, it will be easy for us to illustrate the possible school that can be clubbed. If we know that school A lacks this and school C has a higher number of infrastructural like they have a high number of infrastructure facilities, so they can be clubbed. So we need to come out with a system on which time of the day that they can actually attend. If school A has to attend at 2, then school B needs to attend at 4 to school C. So the right set of scenarios have to be created to make this school complex model very efficient. Another point that I would like to get here is that to test this system is not limited in our educational set of areas. We do not have to just look at schools to use the system. We can actually go beyond and try and use the system in healthcare. If we know that one of the major hospitals lacks certain facilities, can the patients be shifted to another one which is in close proximity? So the entire idea of doing this complex consolidation model is not limited to just schools. So based on these simulation and the scenarios, we knew that we had to understand the needs in users. Their needs was a major factor, as the authorities were also into it, that understand what the parents want, understand what the teacher wants, and then we can actually take a next step. Mapping of resource needs to be done properly to utilize it at a complete extent. And to create facilities, we can actually make them low maintenance and sustainable for these schools to take care of them by themselves for a longer period of time. And a lot of design development for future adaptation can also be brought in to make these schools more feasible. So the idea the final idea was to help reduce that motion and reduce that time and cost for these kids to benefit through sharing of resources, and also help in better governance of these schools at all the levels. Based on these key findings and the prototype, the objective also becomes at a later stage to develop guidelines for future policy and future reforms that we can get in to improve these schools probably at a group level, if we know that we cannot make new schools at every distance, we know that we can upgrade them through the sharing of resources. And the next step would actually be when these resources are done, when the school complex model actually works in, we can start with training these teachers, we can start with training the students in terms of making the timetables very feasible and making a continuous improvement in these schools. So thank you. That was my research for the school consolidation project. Thanks a lot.
Okay, thank you, Pratibha. I think it was a very well explained presentation. So participants can now ask questions. You can either just unmute yourself and ask your question, or you could just put it in the chat box, whichever you feel more comfortable with. So yes. Is there any question? Is there any participant who would want to add in maybe a question, or even, let's say, add in your views or comments on the topic itself?
Yeah, Tushar, can I come in?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Yeah, Pratibha, excellent study, as I see, and very interestingly, my present assignment actually deals with this subject only at National Board of Accreditation for Education and Training, and that's what we are doing at Quality Council of India. Yeah, and now the very interesting point what you have raised is sharing of resources, because that's where the foundation for consolidation comes in. Now, it is also a principle of optimization of resources. You see, that is what we deal in. And, but you see, the time and again, when people have talked about this, and incidentally, let me first of all share that at SPA, when I was a student, 1970 to 75, we had teachers coming in from IIT Delhi to teach us physics, chemistry, mathematics. Art and culture was being taught by a professor from Delhi University. So was sociology. And we would have a teacher of anatomy coming in from Maulana Azad Medical College. So the concept of sharing resources or speciality is age-old. The point where we have got into trouble in the government is disconnect with the policy, what they frame, and in reality, how it is being exploited, not really implemented as a facility for the community, but as an exploitation to get some fee and things like that. There have been many, many models on this consolidation or without consolidation, what you had mentioned as a school having students of 3rd standard and 8th standard together. I do not know if you know about Ekal. This is a model of school, over 1 lakh school in India, spread over almost all the states, where one village, one teacher, one school. Ekal signifies one teacher. And that teacher takes care of all the students of all the classes, not maybe together, sometime together and sometime independently. The idea being there is that education must go to student rather than a student jumping in or going over to 5 kilometers on 10 kilometers. Okay. So that model is being tried voluntarily. It is being tried by an NGO and it works very well. So I would say that there is no harm in one teacher teaching maybe 5 classes together. That's not the point. The point is the metrics must also reflect what is the outcome of teaching and learning. You see, it is not only the physical infrastructure or timetable or whether we have a teacher up for a particular subject or not. It is the important thing is be it Anganwadi, be it early school education, that what is the outcome? And it is the outcome which has been worrying us, even when a school has all the infrastructure in, let's say, in an urban area like Delhi, where you have all the government schools. So you have all the infrastructure, or private schools as well. You have infrastructure, you have student-teacher ratio correctly, you have subject specialists, you have lab, you have library, but are the standards reasonable? Are they standards to the expected level? So my point here is that while the concept of sharing is perfect, but the measurement needs to be the standards of education. What is the outcome of the teaching and learning and this infrastructure, what you have? There is always something which is bare minimum. When you show such toilets naturally, not acceptable. So there has to be, if you have a physical station or a physical school or a physical point, naturally it has to be of certain standards, light, ventilation, whatever. But
There seems
and
to be yeah.
yeah, and clue to many sectors, as you rightly said, healthcare or whatever, all other infrastructure which a welfare state needs to provide. I think we need to optimize on our resources, because economy is what decides whether we would be sharing or we would be having privately available or individually available facilities. So that is dictated by that kind of a societal or socio-economic condition. But the outcome is the most important. That is what I would say. But on the whole, I think a very, very interesting model you have tried to prepare. Must compliment you. And at least I would be willing to interact with you further.
Absolutely, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, sir. So, I think, Pratibha, you do have one question. I think Vanshika wants to ask. She's asking about the logistics of the research that you conducted, and she's asking what were the challenges that you faced in conducting that sort of a research.
Oh, okay. So the entire duration of my research was around 4 months. And initially it was slightly difficult for me to, I would do my primary research, but to do a secondary research and actually to complement those points with the primary one that I had done, I had to take a lot of permissions from different departments. And to actually get to these officials was a big task, because I know they're busy and they have a lot of work to do. But I almost waited for 15 to 20 days to get a permission letter to visit that one particular school. So one of the major challenges I faced was to get permissions. And secondly, since I did this research in Karnataka, so there was a lot of language barrier. So for the teachers to actually trust me in this process, it took them a long time. It took me a long time to make an understanding with them and let me study their school and all of that. So that was one of the major challenges that I faced.
Okay, I hope that answers your question, Vanshika. Rohan, is there a question that you want to ask? And yeah.
Hi, Pratibha. It was an amazing presentation. And I wanted to ask.
Rohan, I'm not able to hear you.
Rohan, if you could just speak a bit more loudly.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Yeah, your voice is very muted, Rohan. If you could just speak a bit more loudly.
Hello.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now? So it was an amazing presentation.
Thank you.
And I want to ask, do you think there's potential for this, like in sort of like cities like Gurgaon, Delhi, where like they're private schools and they have so many resources, and currently they are like leasing it out for like apps like Fitso and everything, where they have facilities for sports and everything, where they can simply like partnership with public sectors and just provide these for like students and everything, and they can like sort of have a partnership where it was beneficial for the students, especially in cities like Delhi, where like government is so enthusiastic and promoting like government schools.
Yeah. So I think in a city like Gurgaon, these models can work, but or Delhi, one of the major challenges that one can face would be the time that it takes for that one small school to actually visit these bigger schools, better schools, and to convince their parents to let them be out, and the time taken for them to travel. So a lot of factors need to be put in to understand that bit, to understand the time and motion study that we can do. If one of the bigger schools is in proximity, then I think it's very well possible. But if it takes, regarding the traffic that we have, regarding the kind of weather situations that we have, that might be the only challenge that we can face. Otherwise, I think this model can probably very well work in a city like Gurgaon.
Okay, thank you, Pratibha, and thank you, Rohan, for the question. Is there any other participant who wants to ask a question or give in their comments? Then please feel free to do so. In the meantime, Pratibha, you do have your wishes from Sanobar and Gaurav who are praising your work in the
Thank you
chat.
so much. Thanks a lot, guys.
So yeah, is there any other question? If not, I think we can probably then wrap up the webinar for today. I'll just like take one last question if there's anybody who wants to ask. Okay, there doesn't seem to be any questions. So yes, I think I thank Pratibha for the wonderful presentation and also for making time for us today and presenting your work, sharing your work with us, and also to all the participants, as well who took out the time to attend the webinar today. Yeah, with this, I would like to bring the webinar to a close. Please have a good day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone. Thanks, Tushar.